I'm with Roger Luther, the president of the Preservation Association of the Southern Tier. We're in the Perry Building in downtown Binghamton. Roger, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, next door to us, and this is a fabulous building right here, and next door is where the big fire was.
On December 21st, the building caught fire next door.
And so did it impact the Perry Building at all? Or?
We were worried. In fact, we were worried that it was going to do a lot of damage to not just this building, but the press building and other buildings in this block as well, but it was contained. And we were lucky.
Yeah. And now, the history of this building, this is not the first fire it's ever seen, right?
No, no. In fact, that building, it was built in 1898. And it originally served two purposes. This Perry building that we're in was a department store. It was called Hills, McLean and Haskins. In 1898, they had grown to a point where they needed more space. So a guy named Cyrus Strong had this building built next to us. And the first two floors and the basement served as an extension of this department store. So they were joined here on the first floor and basement. And then the upper floors were occupied by the Masons. And so it was really the first Masonic temple in Binghamton. And it went on that way until 1919. There was a fire. It was caused by some sort of electrical problem. And it was a terrible fire, but it was in fact almost exactly like the fire that we had just last December.
Wow.
If you look at the old pictures, compare them to the new pictures, it's almost identical. It ended up burning the Masons out. They decided that they couldn't be there anymore because it did so much damage to the building, and they decided to have a new building built, and that's when they built the temple on Main Street, the Masonic Temple.
On the corner of Murray.
Yeah. So they moved there after the 1919 fire. But at the same time, the Strong building was rebuilt, and the Hills, McLean and Haskins department store expanded to fill up the whole building. And so it served as a department store up until McLean's closed in the early 1970s.
Now this recent fire, a lot of scary things. I mean, next door the press building was damaged.
Oh yeah. We were very lucky. The Perry building was very lucky not to be destroyed in that fire. Right. In fact, the whole block was lucky. Near as I can tell, from looking down into the burned out building, it looks to me like the fire was towards the back of that building. The good thing for the Perry building is that even though if you look at the facade, the fronts of the buildings, they're right next to each other. In fact, behind that facade, there's a space. There are two walls. So we were insulated by that space. Plus the fact that it was in the back of the building, I think helped save the Perry building. It's funny because after the fire, a lot of people said, hey, your building's made out of cast iron. That's why it didn't burn. Well, from talking to the fire department, it sounds like cast iron doesn't really protect a building from fire. And in fact, once it gets hot, it loses its strength. And if you spray it with cold water, it shatters.
Oh.
So I guess that's an urban myth that cast iron saves your building from fire. The other thing we had in our advantage, I think, was the wind direction. I watched as the fire burned, and it looked like it was blowing towards the press building. And unfortunately, because of that, it did do a lot of damage to the press building.
Yeah. I understand that there was a lot of, mostly water damage though, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course, if you look at the pictures from that day, you'll see that most of the windows on the side of that building were broken. Well, not most, but a lot of the windows in the stairwell were broken. So there was water just shooting into that building. And it did a lot of damage. You can see that the ceiling tiles have fallen down. Everything was pretty much water damaged in that building. And there's a lot of smoke damage too.
Well, it's great that we have a well-trained fire department and the Preservation Association of the Southern Tier to be our advocates for these and be the advocates for these historic buildings.
Well, we try to keep these buildings in the public eye, that's for sure. And you mentioned the fire department. We can't say enough about their performance on that day. So, yeah, we've got a lot to be thankful for sure.
Yes, and the offices for the Preservation Association are right here in the Perry building on the first floor.
Yep.
And first Fridays, we usually have an event going on here.
Every first Friday, 6 to 9 o'clock. Yeah, we always have something going on.
So looking forward to the next one.
Good.
And thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks again for having me.